I was 16 years old. A big thing happened. My brother, who was 23 at the time, was killed in a car accident. I was 16. My parents' world was upside down. It changes everything. My parents were the kind of people who taught me the kindness, compassion, unconditional, and all of that. And they also wanted me to have my life still. They knew, even though he was now gone, they always wanted to protect me. And they always wanted to keep my world as perfect sunshine and rainbows. It's very hard to do that once you have a significant loss like that. So that changed me. Now, the questions come in. I'm in college. What's your life? Yeah, my brother died in a car accident. You have to go through that throughout your life. And people are like, oh my God, it's fine. I'm good. I've grieved, So things happen for a reason. And that I look at it in a positive way, where I think people look at it very negatively. And then I had all these happy other events. My older son got married. My younger son got married. They have very successful jobs. They're doing well. They're happy and healthy and peaceful. And
Hi, Jill. Welcome to Becoming You. Thank you so much for being on the show.
hi, Katrina. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy to be back with you.
Yes, since Winning Wednesday, it was so good to have you on that show too. And I know we're going to dive into some stuff today, but I may have to have you back again.
Sounds great to me. I love being here with you.
Yeah, always so much to talk about, always a very rich conversation. And just for the audience who maybe didn't catch the Winning Wednesday episode and doesn't know you personally, I wanted to take just a couple minutes tracing back our history and how we met. I think it's about 10 years ago now. And we actually met through this common theme that I like to talk about sometimes, 6 degrees of separation. And it's funny because I would say our lives were kind of in parallel to some extent. Our towns bumped up against each other, but I didn't meet you till my early 20s, even though you have two sons. They're both around my age. I went to an all girls high school and like Catholic school for elementary school. So we never crossed paths despite being so close geographically to one another.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was working in retail and I met Sheila, one of my customers, who introduced me to you. And she thought that we would hit it off because you focus on life coaching and helping women. And it was just such a great introduction that she made. And here we are, 10 years later having a podcast episode.
I know.
So
It's amazing.
it really is.
Yes. 6 degrees of separation. It really is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great.
And it's just so funny. And so a lot of what I just kind of touched on here, I know what we're going to dive into during this conversation too. But one of the things that drew me to you back then was your ability to talk about mindfulness and meditation and staying present and grounded. And when I was in college, which at the time was only shortly before we met, I had heard this phrase, be where your feet are. And that phrase has stuck with me ever since. But meeting you put meaning behind it. And I finally understood what that actually meant to be present and to actually be where your feet are. And I know mindfulness is a big topic for you too. So I'm excited to just hear how that's been
It is.
woven through
Yeah.
your life. Yeah. And how you've become the
Yeah.
person you are today.
Yeah. Sounds great. I will definitely touch on that toward, it's somewhere in the middle or the end, but it will be great. And I just want to say that, through the years, I follow you, through social media, and you have inspired me greatly. So it's a great connection.
Yeah,
I
I
really love
really
it.
appreciate that, Jill. And for the audience sake, I know Jill Jonas, you'll see that on the header, no relation to the Jonas Brothers, which was one of my first questions when I first met Jill. Being from New Jersey, having
Everybody
that
asks.
last name, it's a small world, but not that
Right.
small.
Right.
So
It's funny.
I wanted you on the show on this series of Becoming You, where I talk about my guests' experience evolving into who they are. And I wanted you on the show specifically because I know through social media, like you said, how important family is to you, and how much you've been throughout your life. And you always find time to spotlight your loved ones. And they are definitely, the people that you prioritize in your life. And it's very evident just from the outside. But as a human being, I know we also need to take care of ourselves. And I wanted you to just be able to maybe have a moment to reflect on, what does that look like? How do you find space between your family and serving them and maintaining and caring for your personhood? So I think that's a great place for us to start.
So I think, just for reference, I'm 60 years old. That's a big time in my life. You turn 60, things change a lot. I think it's important because who I was when I was having children at 30 is very different than who I am today. So the family that I had, have back then, it looks different because you're raising kids. It's different than when you have grown kids who are launched and on their own and successful and do well. And you look at them through a different lens. It's easier to maintain mindfulness and make those memories if that's what's important to you.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting because as you talked about my history, I've really evolved. I'm not really the same. The core values are the same. I am kind, I'm generous, I'm compassionate, I'm unconditional. Those things have remained the same throughout who I am. But I don't know, just decision making and just things that you do along the way change with every decade of your life. So it is quite interesting how that is. So, but mindfulness really wasn't a term for me in my 30s. It just became a term, I think, probably the last 10, 12 years, but more so in the last 5 years. And so I think I've always been kind of mindful, but never knew that mindful was, it just wasn't a part
Right.
of my life.
You didn't have the
I
vocabulary
didn't know
for
how
it.
to incorporate. I didn't. But because of being a psychotherapist now and what I do, I really use that a lot. And it's been very helpful for myself, my clients, and it helps me too, and other people. So I think that would be the best way to answer what you're
Yeah.
looking for the moment.
Right. I love
It'll
that.
come up
And
again.
yeah, I love that so much. And thank you for holding space for folks who may be earlier in their journey of having kids and building a family. Because everything you just
Hmm.
said, I mean, right now, maybe that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the highlight reel because they're out of the house
Right.
or wherever they're living their own lives.
Right.
And maybe
Exactly.
that wouldn't
Right.
have been the case, 30 years ago. So I think that's a really important
Exactly. Hmm.
distinct thing to mention. And it's something interesting too. Whenever we meet people in life, we're meeting them at
Hmm.
that current iteration of themselves, but they've been a whole
Hmm.
person before we came along. They'll continue to be a
Right.
whole person in
Right.
the future. And we're just seeing a glimpse of their story at the time. So take us back
Hmm.
to your story. I think you mentioned you wanted to start 1980. So tell me what that looked like and what was
It's a
going on.
long
And
time ago.
I know, definitely
Yeah.
a long time before I was actually around, which is great because I think that generations can really help each other see what they just are blind to, right? Blind by the fact that I wasn't alive during that time. And I know there's going to be a lot of rich material that I'm sure people will want to double click on. And like I said, I'll have to have you back on the show as the questions come in. But I'm going to give you, some time to walk us through what that was like and all these different things that may have happened in your life to, impact your journey and who you're
Perfect.
becoming.
So what I'm going to do is I'll do a timeline just because it's probably easier to reference years, but I won't delve in. I'll give snippets, won't delve in because it's just each story has a whole story in and of
Of
itself.
course.
And we only have this short
Understandable.
time together.
Yeah.
We would need a long time. Okay, so let's just start. 1980, just for reference, I was 16 years old. So adolescence, didn't get my driver's license yet. I was, just living my life. And a big thing happened. My brother, who was 23 at the time, was killed in a car accident and was suddenly, instantly gone. And so there's a whole story, of course, with that.
I
There's
know.
multiple stories with that. But let's just take a snippet of it. I was 16. My parents' world was upside down, changed. It changes everything. My parents were the kind of people who taught me the kindness, compassion, unconditional, and all of that.
Right.
And they also wanted me to have my life still. They knew, even though he was now gone, they didn't want me to, they always wanted to protect me and they always want to keep my world. It's hard to protect the person you want. You want them to think the world is perfect sunshine and rainbows. It's very hard to do that once you have a significant loss like that. So they tried and they tried hard and I had a nice life. So even from 16 on, I've had a nice, rich life in terms of, growth and depth and all of the things, but it changes you, right? So that changed me. Now, the questions come in. I'm in college. Oh, you have any siblings? Do you have it? What's your life?
Right.
Yeah, my brother died in a car accident. You have to go through that throughout your life. And people are like, oh my God, it's fine. I'm good. I've grieved. I know how to, so you get the idea of that. So, okay. So that was 1980. So jump to 1988. So I went through college and, all that, not important right now. 1988, I met my husband. And that was a big time in my life. 1980, I'm jumping, but 1989, we got married. 1990, I had my first son, who is 33.
Right.
And my mom, who I was extremely close to, 10 calls a day, extremely close. My mom got diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
And that was a huge impact on my life. So unfortunately, she only made it to 1993. And coincidentally, talk about all these, things, but my mother and my brother both died on April 19th. My
Oh
brother
my
1980,
God.
my mom 1993. So that's crazy. But
Right.
like my mom could plan something like that, even in a stage of cancer. So she, now I lost my mom. So my mom was thrilled to have a grandchild, thrilled that she saw my son for 3.5 years. She always said that this is what kept her alive. Unfortunately, cancer did not allow for that for long. So, okay, now I lose my mom. 1993, it's interesting because I miscarried when my mom was dying, and I was pregnant. I miscarried, and it's so crazy. Most people are so sad when that happens and go through the depths of grief and what they, deal with, and everybody's different. But for me, it was a blessing because I could not have dealt with my mother's loss and have a child.
Right.
B, the loss of the miscarriage was a blessing because if I didn't miscarry, I wouldn't have my second son who, I adore, and I wouldn't have him, so things happen for a reason. And that I look at it in a positive way where I think people look at it very negatively. So that's something. So in 1994, I had him. Okay. So in 2003, so now we're jumping ahead, of course I raised my kids, you go through life. 2003, my oldest son got 2003, my father passed away. So now he was 72. He lived 10 years longer than my mom. He passes away. Okay. So now my family, as I knew, my brother, my mother, they're gone. Family is very important to me. I have lots of cousins and relatives and different things. And I keep everyone close as I can with busy life, In 2008, my oldest son got caught up in addiction very badly. And I'm a little enabling, I'm not going to lie, but I was the type of person, I'm there with you no matter what.
Right.
And I'm going to love you no matter what. And you could be at the lowest low or the highest. I'm loving you the same. It doesn't not matter. I treat everybody equal. It does not matter. Nothing matters. It's strict unconditional love. So I was there for him through the craziest, that would be a 5-day podcast. So it's just too much information,
Right. I can
but it
only
was
imagine.
yeah. So he had to move to Florida and go through programs, and it was, pretty crazy. My younger son ended up getting caught up in a little bit of it too, a little bit later. My older son he was doing well, got my younger son healthy. And so together they kind of, started growing and, finding their way out of it. And I was very grateful because it was before the days, we talk about fentanyl and it's a big thing today people talk about. And I'm grateful that was not the case for my children. And I am grateful that my kids figured it out and changed their whole entire life, which is really unheard of, but it's definitely a miracle and forever grateful for that. So that was a huge thing. So these are all life-changing events, as you can tell, that would
Absolutely. Yeah.
do something to my life. I mean, you'll know what it did to my life in a little bit, but these are all major things. I then, during the same time of the addiction craziness, I ended up going to get my master's in social work. Now that's a huge event in my life. And the reason why is because when I was a kid, I wasn't a good student. I wasn't, I just wasn't a good student. So I didn't think I could do it. I had the limiting belief that I talk to all my clients about today,
Right.
that I'm not smart enough and I can't do it. And everybody encouraged me and everybody supported me. And I'm lucky that I have that support. people started coming up to me on the street and just telling me their life story. And my husband would always say to me, how it got me to my master's is my husband would always say, people are at ease with Jill Jonas. And we would have a little joke. And then he said, that should be your moniker on a radio show. And I said, okay, I can't do a radio show. So he's like, you should inquire, try to get your master's. That would be great. Like, this is great for you. Okay. Anyway, I did. I took 3 years. I got my master's at this, my late 40s, going through addiction with my kid, like crazy stuff. But I did it. And I went to NYU and I got a 4.0, me, like it was so big. And so it was like, oh my gosh. So that's another layer of my story, right? Oh gosh. And then, so I got the job with Sheila and I became a psychotherapist from 2015 to present. I still do what I do and have a pretty successful career at what I do. In 2019, though, my husband had a health event and we didn't think he was going to make it. He had an overnight liver health event that was crazy. So in that moment, I thought, oh my God, like that's it. Like this another life altering main person in my life is going to die on me, and it was really kind of scary. Thank God it didn't work out that way. He's still here and all, is seemingly well.
Right. Thank God.
So these are all huge things. And then I had all these happy other events. My older son got married. My younger son got married. They have very successful jobs. They're doing well. They're happy and healthy and peaceful and just like miracles, to me. And these are all the things. So that's the stuff that makes me who I am today. Yeah.
And
so, that's just that part.
Right. And first, before we dive into, what does that mean for you, right? Because that's the big question. Great. We take all of this stuff that happens in life and then we try to, figure out what it means for us. But
Right.
First, before we get into that, I just want to thank you so much for, first off, walking us through that in such a easy to follow way. I know sometimes when we're rehashing our stories, you go down winding trails and it can be very confusing. So the timeline definitely helped someone like me who's numbers oriented. But also just from a vulnerability perspective, thank you for coming on here and sharing all of that. I know your stories resonate with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I'm just so grateful that you trust me to help share your story in that way. And then a few things that you pointed out, your unconditional love, I can attest to that completely. The limiting beliefs, I know that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I'm glad that you brought those things up because they're really important topics that I don't think we always talk about enough. So just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, and thank you.
Of course. And one other thing, so you started with Sheila in 2015. I must have been one of your first I was going to say guest clients. I'm like, I must have been one of the first people on the couch at that time. So that's just so funny to hear your story laid out and then to see where I plug into it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I started later in life, but life experience, I think when you're an older psychotherapist, life experience lends itself to what you do. And then you evolve through time.
Definitely. Yeah. So tell me more about that, evolving through time. What has that evolution looked like for you?
Yeah. So, God, it's just brought up so many things. I've been so blessed with I don't even know what to call it, quality, richness, a large amount of clientele, just so many wonderful people who have come my way in all these years that I work with. And I learned so much from them. And when I'm helping somebody, let's say with a limiting belief, it resonates because I think of my own and I know now how to help somebody with that because I succeeded at something and they can too. Or if somebody's like, they want to go back to school, like I can, you can do it. I try to build on strengths and resiliency for my clients. I believe in that strongly. Anyone can point out weakness, but it's the strengths. That's where we're going to go today. Right. So, where we're going to grow from. So, I just think it's doing what I do has given me another level of mindfulness where I do give a lot of myself to clients, family, all these different things, but I do take the time for me. So in some ways, I just think that I'm trying to answer your question.
No, you're fine. Just tell me what's in your mind. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't even think I asked a specific question. I'm just like, tell me about how did you take all those things in your life and how is it,
Yeah. So
created
I
who
think
you are?
one thing that has, I'd like to tell the real story. It's not just all the good that's happening. So I think one thing from my losses, and I am the opposite of like, woe is me. Oh, so sad. It's negative. No, it's all positive stuff. It's
Mhm.
made me grow and, learn and evolve. So I don't look at it as a negative, but sad, yes, but not a negative. So I think from my losses, though, that did something to me. It caused fear and anxiety and the things I deal with every day with people, but it caused so much fear and anxiety. So, like, anyone could be taken just suddenly, right? Well, what
Right.
happened to me, to my brother? I had to deal with my mom with cancer and like not had to, but like she was dying, and it was like now this other loss. These are big people. Like it caused like now it made me want to live my life like hardcore. Like I want to live. I need to live. I always joke and say till 93. That's when my mom's mom lived to 93. My mom died at 59.
Wow. Yeah.
So I always say I want to live like Nana did till she's 93. That's my little thing I say. But I want to live. That's like huge. And I'm so afraid. Like I don't hold myself back with fear, but I'm so afraid. Like we don't know when our expiration date is. We don't know when our time is up, right? Right. My brother didn't know at 23 he
Right.
wasn't going to have life. So it's scary. And then as you get older, people do pass and you see a lot of it and that's scarier. And so I have to manage my anxiety and manage my fears. And every time I get on a plane, even though people die in car crashes way more than planes, every time I get on a plane, I'm like, oh, please, dear God, make me come back. I have a whole life, my children, my this,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy. It's a little crazy, but that's what happens, right? I
Hmm.
mean, the world we live in creates fear and anxiety. So it's, so with all the good, there's that, there
Yeah.
is a lot of that. So I just manage that with mindfulness and
Right.
skills,
Right. And I think that's
you know?
so eye-opening for you to share too, because most people that go to therapy who do struggle with anxiety or whatever their ailments are, aren't necessarily thinking that their therapist might struggle with those same things. And I think as a professional, hearing you speak so candidly about how this is the reality. I mean, this is the world we live in. Things happen, you're responsible for other things, and now you worry that something might happen to the people that you love and care about, or to the things that you're responsible for, based on the fact that you've seen it happen. So the fear is not unfounded, it's from experience, and not to say that that fear is any more valuable than any other type of fear, but in your case, like it's pointing to something. It came from your history and it's ingrained in you as a result. And I know mindfulness is easy to say, but how do you actually tap into that in the moment when your fear feels so real and it's
Hmm. Hmm.
proven? It's there for a reason. It's a valid fear. It's not something that you made up. So cognitively, it's harder to just dismiss it. So how
Right.
exactly does mindfulness work in those moments?
So for me, the first thing I had to do, and it's many years already, I did this a while ago. I had to practice what I call putting fear into faith. Now, faith doesn't have to be religion. Faith could be spiritual. It could be anything. It could be a butterfly. It could be anything you want it to be. That's how I look at it. Some people believe in God, some a higher power. There's lots of things you can believe in, but it doesn't have to be, it could be what your belief system is. So the first thing I had to do, and this was many years ago already, I had to learn how to put fear into faith. So what I would do is I would sit in my, this is as vulnerable as it gets. I would sit in my car, and every time I got in my car to drive somewhere, I would talk out loud to myself and I would say, I cannot take on this fear. I am worried about, it could be my son, it could be anything in my life, whatever it was. And I can't do this. It's too scary. The insanity is crazy. I can't. I can't do it. My heart is palpitating. I can't please. And I would, higher power, God, butterflies, my angels in heaven, all the people I lost who I love, who guide me on earth is what I believe. I put it onto them and I'd say, just please protect me and all my people and just take it on because I can't. And with that, I learned how to start to almost give away my fear and let the cards fall where they may. Now, maybe it wouldn't work out. In my case, I got lucky and things did work out, but doesn't always. And when things don't go exactly my way, there's a reason for that, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I had to do first.
Mm-hmm.
After I accomplished that, and thank God I did,
Yeah.
that's changed my life greatly. Um, Now I don't really, when I feel that fear, it's easy now. Now I can just say, you know what you have to do. Like I can do
Right.
just that and I'm okay. So
Right.
my next step is I take these breaths. I literally put my hands right here and I go, and I just de-escalate and just get everything calm. And I do it 3 times. And I really do feel calmer when I do that. And sometimes I'll take a walk and sometimes I'll even put a load of wash in, believe it or not, like anything to get myself distracted, where I can just be in the present of whatever I'm doing, anything. If I call a friend, I'm in that moment in with that friend, or anything I'm doing. So that's another layer where you really have to be present. You know, your feet, you really have to be where your feet are, like you said. You have to be present. And the other thing is accepting yourself. This is very hard to do. A lot of people cannot do that. It's one of the largest things in therapy. Acceptance is the ultimate goal of anything. And that's something that I practiced, accepting myself. This is who I am, perfectly imperfect. This is who I am. There's no, this is it,
Yeah.
you
What you
know,
see is what
and
you get.
accepting
Yeah.
yourself, it's a big thing, accepting yourself. But so
Mhm.
those are the main things.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
thanks for
that's
walking
a,
through that. I know sometimes when it becomes second nature, like you said, you take your breaths now and you just know if it's from a place of fear, I need to distract myself and you move through it. But taking us back to those earlier moments where you had to mentally visualize detaching yourself and moving the fear and displacing it away from you. I think that that's a great starting point for a lot of people who may not have even an idea of how to move it away from them, and
mhm,
breathing and just jumping into breathing exercises may not be the most helpful if they need to engage their brain in that way.
right.
So I
Hmm.
think that was a great example. And um, oh, I hate when this happens. I always like to respond to what the person's saying anytime I'm chatting with someone. Like you said, you're present, you want to respond to what they're saying, show active listening. And then I always have my questions too to follow up. And I'm like, what was my question? So I hate
Well,
that.
that's normal. You're human.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
give you a
Exactly.
pass on
Oh,
that.
so that's exactly it. I'm human. You were saying that we need to learn to accept ourselves. And you had mentioned how mindfulness is a term that we use nowadays. And I just wanted to share all of the media that's going on about mindfulness. There's so many different tips and tricks out there, and videos that people share. And one I saw recently was about um, not so much loving yourself as an object, but loving
Hmm.
who you are as a person and how you're
Hmm.
existing. And are
Hmm.
you being yourself? Are you loving being yourself? And then are you just like I said, just being? And I think that, or they described it as, it moves it away from objectifying yourself and more towards existence. I guess I forget what they had said, but I think that that was a really interesting distinction, because accepting
Hmm.
yourself is not just saying, okay, I'll deal with the fact that I was born with brown hair or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, how can I enjoy my brown hair? And of
Hmm.
course, you can take
Right.
it
Exactly.
into a deeper way. This year, I'm trying to stay with like middle ground questions, so I don't always go so deep, because I have a tendency to do that. And I know a lot of people don't like shallow or small talk. So middle questions is what I'm calling them. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of value to be had when you do start accepting yourself and not judging yourself as much. A
Hmm.
mantra I'm implementing this year is to just get curious, where in the past I may have gotten
Hmm.
judgmental. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yes. Curious is definitely better than judgmental. because people can be very judgmental and it's a cruel world out there, you know.
Oh
But
yeah.
who is anyone to judge? There's no perfect, right? There is no such thing, and some people really think that's actually a thing, and it's not.
Right.
And it's just realizing we're all human. We have to have compassion for everyone. There shouldn't be any judgment, but we live in a judgmental world, so I
Yeah.
understand it. But I try,
Yeah.
I try
And
to work on it.
sorry, I have to do this. I
Yes.
am reading this book right now, The
Hmm.
Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control. I can't tell you the amount
Hmm.
of people I've recommended this book to, and I'm only halfway through it right now. But something you just said, where basically you said like people are striving for perfection and it doesn't exist. This book dives into the fact that you can accept perfection and perfectionism, and you can channel it and harness that power and still give yourself the freedom to be human. And I think from that perspective, we're so used to judging perfectionism and saying, like, oh, there's something wrong with you because you're striving for excellence. And this book, I just recommend it. So since you mentioned that, and I have it right
Yes,
here.
I'm so happy. No, that's great because I'm going to put it in my library and I would like to read it. And I
Yeah.
also have a lot of clients who could benefit from that. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Oh,
I will
absolutely.
probably call you
I was
call
going to
you
say,
for
I
it on the side.
cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this book now. But that's great.
I
Um,
know.
so, from your story, if we zoom out and we look at the timeline that you shared, there was obviously one specific instance when you went back to school that was really specifically for you. A lot of those other things happened
Hmm.
to you or to your sons, and then, of
Right.
course, you're supporting them. But going back to school was something that specifically was serving you. And it sounds like your husband was
Hmm.
extremely supportive, if not came up with the idea.
Hmm.
I'm not sure which came
Hmm.
first, but I know in a good
Yeah, exactly.
partnership.
Both.
Yeah, it's this teamwork. And again, from the
Yeah.
outside, I've seen you and your husband just make this incredible partnership. And when I think about successful marriages and, happy marriages, yours is definitely one that comes to mind. Which is unfortunately in my scope, maybe not for everyone, but it's kind of rare to see that. And so, first off, I really commend both of you for that. And second, I would love to hear more about what it was like, or what it's been like since you're still practicing psychotherapy and you're still working with clients and investing in yourself in this way. Did you feel like you were getting more autonomy back in your life by doing that? What does that look like? How has that experience been like
Hmm.
for you?
So let me just first say a snippet about the marital comment that you just
Sure.
made. Thank you. I appreciate your recognition on that. But marriage, it will be 35 years, June 24th. And to be honest, as I like to be honest,
Right.
marriage is hard work. And anyone married that says it's not hard work is not telling the truth. It's, you can have a beautiful marriage, but it's work. It takes two people who are from different places and think different things and have different. So there have been lots of ups and downs. It's not been perfect along the way. We've had many struggles, but we're still here today because the ultimate goal, and I believe in, my parents showed me that that's important no matter what. If you really love your person, make it work no matter what. So that's something that I believe in. So I work hard at that. Um, so, I just wanted to give the
Oh,
truth of
absolutely.
it's not
And thank you.
all
I have no
perfect.
frame of reference for marriage at this time. So I appreciate the honesty,
Yeah.
and the reflection
Yes.
there.
I think it's important. Okay. So in terms of, so going back to school and working the way I am, listen, along the way, I raised my children and I had little jobs, but nothing that amounted to anything. And this was the big first significant thing later in life. But it's made it's really been impactful. It's given me the autonomy and independence and my, you know, my husband and I are in it together, but this gave me my own sense of self and my own money. And I mean, it was always my money, but this is different. I earn this in it, myself, and my hard work is paying off, and I can contribute to something, or I can pay whatever it is. Like, I can do this. And it's been a really, really amazing journey for me. And my husband, he always respected me, of course, but and he always said, I would never change jobs. Raising kids is so hard. He was one of those that got it, which is so nice. But now his respect is different. He sees how hard I work, and he's so, again, supportive, and he's just, I think, impressed by it. And it's really nice because you just get a different, it just changes things, and makes me feel so good. But for myself, I am proud of myself. I mean, it's hard for me to be proud of myself, but I am, it's a big deal for me.
It
So it's
is.
nice.
It is.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you by association. I almost hate using that phrase because it's like I had nothing to do with your accomplishments, but it brings me a lot of joy to hear, you share them and to see this other facet of you. I mean, had you not gone this route, you and I never would have met, clearly, because we lived near each
Right.
other. Your kids are my
That's
age,
right.
like the whole nine, and yet never met. It was only because you started going into practice. Like that's really exactly when we met. So I do think, everything happens for a reason in that way. It sounds like this
I do
choice
too.
of yours was very empowering for yourself. And it also gave, your husband the opportunity to see a whole nother side of you, which was always there, right? You're more than capable to do anything you set your mind to. And maybe in the future that'll look different too. But I think that that's a really beautiful aspect too of what I hear about marriage, because I hear you become different people over time, and who you marry
Hmm.
today is not necessarily who they'll be in 20 years either. And you're going to change as well. That's the whole concept and the premise of this podcast, is talking about the fact that we do constantly change, but how do you grow and adjust with the people in your life as they're also changing,
Hmm.
and how do we make space for them?
Hmm. I mean, I think it's that evolving, with another. You have to have open mindedness to do it. You can't just, if you're very black and white thinking, or very rigid in thinking, or can't be flexible enough to go along with the changes, or, you know, it won't work. It works because people are open minded to the evolution, to the change, to whatever is going to happen. And if anyone is willing to support another person in the journey, then it works. It's a win win for everybody.
Right, right.
So it really, it's just, yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
nice journey.
Yeah. No, it sounds like
Yeah,
a nice journey. And you said, is it 35 years coming up June 24th? Or, yeah?
yeah. June 35.
Amazing. Amazing. 35 years this year. So, how do you see yourself as a person, and potentially your marriage too? It doesn't matter. Because I know your
Hmm.
partner, is probably an extension of you at this point, when you think about yourself, maybe. But I'm also coming
Hmm.
from the mindset that we're still individuals no matter what.
Yes,
And so,
absolutely.
yeah. So as you envision yourself into the future and growing and continuing on this journey of becoming, what does that look like for you? Whether it's, I don't want to fill in any gaps for you. So I'll just ask you, what does that look
Yes.
like for you?
So I think at this stage of my life, I my becoming is not. Um, it's interesting that you're asking. I mean, it's interesting that you're asking that, as I was prepared that you would. I I I always thought that I would take my career and launch it into something big and crazy, like, I don't know, a big concierge mental health business of some kind, or, like something
Yeah.
that's, I don't know. And I always had that thought in my mind. And, I work just in the way I do private practice is I take an abundance of clients, and I put my heart and soul into it so much that it's a lot of work, right? But I love it, but it is a lot of work. And then you said earlier, like, how do you balance that life? Well, if I do all that, I can't really balance my life. So if I think about growing it into a different level, bigger, stronger, I don't know that I could do what I really want out of life. And what I really want out of life is family and making memories and growing in that way, as well as having my business. So I'm not sure in terms of psychotherapy how that's going to look for me. I know I could not give it up. I love it so much.
Yeah.
but
And you're so
I don't
good
know
at
how it's
it.
going to.
If
Oh,
this
thank you so
inspires
much.
anyone to go to therapy, I really hope it does, because this is all therapy really is, talk therapy. It's just having a chat. And I think we all have this idea of it's scary or I'm not going to like the person. Shop around, interview the therapist, it doesn't hurt. So I'm glad to hear that you love the work you do, because first off, it comes across, and second, it just makes such a big difference for people who really need someone to talk to.
Right. Yeah. No, I love it. I just don't know how. I don't know. I can't tell you. Next podcast, I'll be able to tell you. For right now, I mean, not a lot of people know, but I'm about to have a grandchild in a week or two. And so that's a really exciting time. And I want to be there, I want to be present. And so I have to make that work. So I really make family work. I do make a lot of memories. I'm very blessed to have two terrific sons and daughter in laws, which, oh my God, the whole in law thing.
Right.
You hardly hear of that.
I
I'm
know.
really lucky. I have two wonderful daughter in laws. So, this is important to me. And what's it all about? That's what it's about for me. So, I will try to do the balance of my work and figure out how to make that look a certain way, and then also balance what's really, really important, which is my family. And, just, I don't know, that's really, for me, that's what it really is about. So, we'll
I
see.
I
I'm not
love
sure.
that. And what's so unique about recording this on video is that you get to have this time capsule of yourself pre-grandma, and then you'll get to see yourself post-grandma in the future. And that's so
Right.
amazing, just to share this, week prior to the birth of your grandchild, and your first grandchild. So now we're talking about you're taking on a brand new title, going through a whole nother evolution. And
Exactly.
right, and your daughter-in-law is going to become a mom, your son's going to become a father. I mean, these are all big
Right.
things. Your husband is a grandfather,
Right.
the
Right.
dynamics just continue to change and evolve. And I think that's amazing. Do you have any apprehension or thoughts about what that's going to look like, or how you're feeling right now? Especially, like I said, because this is your chance to kind of share that before you're a grandma, because you
Hmm.
don't know yet.
Right. I don't have apprehension. I really have excitement. Looking forward to the quality time that I will definitely create, they will create. My only apprehension is my very busy schedule. And
Right.
as I look at the weeks ahead and I see how busy I can be week to week, and I just look at my schedule, I'm trying really hard to block out time in between every day so I can maybe run over and give
Right.
a little kiss to
Right.
my new grandchild.
Yeah.
So, that's it. That's my apprehension is I have a busy schedule, and that's a little scary when you want to put your time into other things.
Yeah. And it's a topic that, again, we could double click on, because it's common to us all. How do you balance work and
Hmm.
life, and how do you prioritize one over the other? And even when you think one is good, then you turn your attention to the other, then that catches on fire. So it's almost
Right.
like it's just an unpredictable um,
Yeah.
the way that we exist. It seems like, it's just comes with the territory. So finding that balance, and maybe like you're describing, paring down your schedule enough and in a way that helps you fulfill areas of your life that are important to you.
Hmm.
So we did it. I'm impressed. We flew through your life. Are there any other thoughts that we didn't get to touch on in this episode? But I am happy to have you back, of course.
Thank you. No, I really think that, no, I think we covered it, right?
Yeah, this is amazing, Jill. Thank you so, so much. I can't wait to hear everyone's
My
feedback
pleasure. Thank you.
and their questions. I know they'll be pouring in. I'm sure everyone will want to have their own chats with you. So, and of course, you'll be too busy with your grandchild to take their call. So that's totally fine and understandable. But I'm thrilled that you were part of Becoming You, and took a chance on me back then when we first met, and then on Winning Wednesday as well. So it's just been amazing growing with you.
Yeah, so it's been amazing growing with you. You literally, when I say you inspire me, I mean it from my heart. You truly do all the time.
Thank you so much. You are my most important listener, and I can't thank you enough for spending your time with me. If this content resonates with you, then hit subscribe. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube by following @ConnectorQueen. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Becoming You.